Today I am making a 19th century Victorian quilt. And we're going crazy today because I will be trying some fancy Victorian stitches for the very first time. Yeah, now I know it's called crazy because it drives you crazy. And this was a fashion icon of the Victorian era and the most extreme scrap buster quilt I know. It was estimated that a full-size crazy quilt might take 1500 hours to complete. My challenge today is make the most beautiful, crazy Victorian quilt that is fit for a queen. Okay, maybe not a whole quilt. 1500 hours? I don't think so. Back then, people would use pretty much anything they had on hand, like curtains, old clothes, upholstery, whatever they had available. Let's take a look at the fabrics I will be using today. You can use any kind of fabric from your stash. Velvets, satins, wool, cotton, embroidered fabric, that would be absolutely perfect for this as well. And I just love the way Victorian era used to combine, all those really somber colors with a little bit of beautiful embellishments. And this is of course influenced by England's Queen Victoria, who in mourning the death of her husband Prince Albert set a fashion trend that was rich, with dark colors and elaborate ornamentation. Oh, so beautiful. I am very happy with my fabric loot. I have some solids, some really cool flowers, and I'm ready to cut. Okay guys, and we are ready to get started. I have my foundation fabric and all my scraps. I think they'll be enough. Let's find out. I'm going to start with the smaller pieces and then grow bigger. Now the piece format is completely random. I just looked at the shapes I had and cut some odd angles. The one thing I kept in mind was to have small, medium and large pieces because with crazy quilting, it's easier to go from small to large. So just go ahead and use whatever shapes you have on hand. You don't have to use the ones I'm using, okay? So now we just want to start basting these pieces into place by hand. Let's get started. I must confess that when I was planning this video, my intention was to hand baste a couple of them and then say, oh no, I can't be bothered with this and go to my machine. But the way I have stuck these up, yeah, I'm going to have to hand sew it. But hey, that's how the Victorians did it, didn't they? And they survived, so will I. But look at how gorgeous this is. Yeah, now I get why it took them 1500 hours to make a quilt. Oh, this is going to be a pain. Now, another big influencer for the crazy quilt design was Philadelphia's 1876 Centennial Exposition. At the entrance to the most popular Japanese pavilion, there was a cracked ice mosaic pattern on the path, as well as other familiar art forms with images of storks, owls, fans and flowers, and at the time Americans were completely taken with anything oriental, so they replicated that in art, quilts included, dinnerware, furniture, etc. Yeah, now I know it's called crazy because it drives you crazy. Oh, crazy. I'm in a much better mood. I am happy to report that after the initial shock of having to pin and baste all this, it's actually pretty easy and pretty quick too. I mean, basting is really large stitches, right? So you can do this really quick. Also, it actually makes your life really easier because if you find a gap or anything like that, you can just add some scraps on top of it, which is something you cannot do with a sewing machine, right? It has to start at a place and end in another, but not when you're doing it by hand. So that is definitely a plus. Okay guys, we are done with our scrap basting and now come the Victorian stitches. It is the best part. I am telling you, this will make our quilt look so stylish, you'll see. So the must-haves are feather stitch, herringbone stitch, cross stitch, and maybe cretan stitch, blanket stitch also, I guess. This is going to be the very first time I am trying most of these. I mean, all I've done so far is cross stitching when I was like 5. So this is going to be a steep learning curve, but I cannot wait. I have asked my mother, I have asked cousins, everyone that knows how to embroider stitch to help me out. So let's see. I've got my embroidery thread right here and I am ready to go. Now, some would say, and I agree, that the stitches are the most important part of a Victorian crazy quilt. We need to stitch all these pieces, all sides of them, like the stitches are the ones holding the fabrics in place. And while we're doing it, we are taking these scraps and turning the whole thing into something absolutely stunning. Now, I am fully aware that what I'm doing here, my stitches do not compare to what Victorian ladies did, okay? Theirs were perfect, mine are not. But I'm still doing it. I won't be, embroidering any animals or flowers, but I am still doing it and it will look absolutely gorgeous. Also, a disclaimer here, I am left-handed, okay? So the way I embroider is not necessarily the way you would if you're right-handed, so just putting it out there. I have completed my chevrons and they look absolutely stunning. Look at what I've just made. You can clearly see my evolution. These were the first ones and they're quite wonky, and then I just start getting the hang of it and they become much better. And I kind of love that they're not all the same thing. I mean, if you're going to hand sew, they may as well have personality, right? And the second point I'm going to try is the feather stitch. It is probably one of the most classical ones out there.
Don't sting the cameraman.
Come on, what's embroidery without a couple of pinches? Guys, I am done with my feather stitch, and as it turns out, I love to embroider. I had absolutely no idea, but this is absolutely gorgeous and a lot of fun. Check this out. This was my first one, so it's definitely the wonkiest one of them all. Now, while embroidery is a lot of fun for me, it may not be for you. And if you own a machine that actually embroiders, a sewing machine with embroidery stitches, you can definitely, replace some of these. Let's see what my machine can do. Let's check out the feather stitch. Well, it's definitely more perfect, but not half as much fun. Let's try the cretan stitch next. Now let me stitch it in the quilt so we can compare. Yeah, guys. Don't be a Sandy, use your thimble. This makes a whole of a world of difference in embroidery. Look at that, guys. The cretan stitch is now officially my new favorite. I think I'm gonna say this with every stitches I make. So yeah, pretty perfect, a little bit too tiny for what I need, but this tells a story. This tells an evolution. And yeah, you can definitely see it's homemade, which is the whole point, I think, of a crazy quilt, a Victorian quilt, to do things the way they did, and it has personality. It has something that a machine will never really get. Oh, so pretty. I can see this coming to life already, just with the stitches alone. Plus, hand sewing and embroidering, it's just so relaxing and fun. Also something you can do anywhere, really. How fun is this? If you'd like to know exactly how I do my stitches step by step, I am making a video for my Patreon, so go check it out. Okay guys, we are done with our stitching and it is looking absolutely gorgeous, but we are not done yet. Now comes the pretty part, the embellishments. Let me show you what I have. When crazy quilts became a thing during Victorian ages, fancy working was the thing. Everything in their homes needed to be embellished with beads, feathers, flowers, and lace to reflect their sense of beauty and artistry. So I will be trying a little bit of that as well. Time to add, maybe some ribbons. And another quick way to turn this into a Victorian beauty without having to spend those 1,500 hours is to use embroidered appliques instead of actually embroidering the quilt. I've got some lovely flowers right here, but you can use whatever you want. And these ribbons, I love. You can also use buttons, whatever you have on hand that think will work well with your quilt. Let's attach these. So how did the craze for crazy quilts ended? See what I did there? With women's emancipation. As women became more independent, some believed fancy work was unhealthy and unnecessary, suggesting time with books was more productive. And while quilts didn't cease to exist, crazy quilts turned into more utilitarian quilts, let's call it that. Women continued to incorporate random patchwork into more traditional projects, but without the sort of ornamentation and detail crazy quilts used to have. Yeah, these aren't the most traditional Victorian embroideries, but look at this. This is so cute. This is really going to add something a little bit special to this. I am loving it. Forgot to take out my stitches. This is not good. It's stuck. Yeah. Always take the stitches out before embroidery, guys. It's like I'm performing surgery here, trying not to mess up my stitches. Guys, just look at that. How precious is this? This would make an awesome pillow. Oh, I have to say, I am hooked. Totally hooked. I love it. I hope you do too, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.